Hello Serie A fan. The Scudetto squad is back at full strength, if not full sobriety, as we gear up for the Demolition Derby. Can Milan keep the league form rolling, or will Inter blow them up? We give you our thoughts and predictions, plus our reactions to one of our faves, joining up with one of our own in North London, along with all the usual accompaniments and an unusual amount of beer, on this episode of Scudetto. Hello, and welcome to Scudetto. It's great to be back. There's been much speculation about my whereabouts over the past few weeks on this podcast, and I'm happy to inform you that my European tour has now come to an end, at least for now. Took me through 7 countries and ended last night in North London at White Hart Lane, where I attended Antonio Conte's debut as Spurs manager, which I'm sure we'll be getting into later in the podcast. But first of all, let's catch up with the squad. Kenny, it's good to see you via camera again. How are you getting on?
Yeah, I'm good, Oscar. Can I just say it's so good to have you back. It's a lot tougher in that hot seat than a lot of people might imagine, and I'm looking forward to your seamless transitions from one topic to the other as Boaz and I inevitably blab on for too long. But I've been good. Yes. How was your journey?
Yeah, it was a good journey. I've struggled to watch much football, I have to confess, just at the top of the pod, because I've not really had a lot of screen time in general, and
hopefully not if you've been driving.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's been nice. It's good to be back, and it was especially good to be back at a live football match for the first time, really, or the first time I've been at a top flight football match since the start of the pandemic. So looking forward to chatting to you guys about and catching up on what's been going on in Serie A. Boaz, how about you? How are you getting on?
I'm doing well, thanks. Find it a bit suspicious that you disappeared just as Roma were collapsing on themselves, and Spurs were also doing pretty bad, and you show up again with Conte at the helm. So I'm not sure if you had something to do with that or if you knew, but yeah.
I can neither confirm nor deny any details of the stops on my trips or the people I may or may not have met with in Belgium.
Apparently, Lukaku has always had a Jurgen Klinsmann shirt on his Jurgen Klinsmann poster on his wall, so he'll be happy to go to Spurs.
Yeah, well, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that one. But yeah, I forgot to do beers just then. So Kenny, you kick us off. What have you got to drink this evening?
I have a pale armadillo, which I believe I've had on this podcast in the past. Session IPA. It's one of the good ones, one of the good new ones that the podcast has introduced me to.
Lovely. I haven't got a beer right this second, but I have very recently been in a pub in the great English countryside with my brother, and I was drinking. It was, I think, a dry hop lager from Adnams, which was pretty delicious, I have to say. And maybe I'll get back for another pint after we finish recording. Boaz, what have you got?
I bought this because of the can. It's called a Hop Opera. And now that I'm looking at it a little bit closer, it says that it's a 9%. So it's going to be interesting. But I'll keep you updated. Imperial New England style Indian Pale Ale. Another one of these thesaurus-led beer names.
Thesaurus.
So you guys both telling me that you're going to be absolutely sloshed by the end of this episode.
That is why we do this, isn't it?
I'm sloshed by the start of it, so I shouldn't imagine there'll be much change, though. Yeah, so let's get into the meat of it, and we have to start off with the Milan derby, really, don't we, Boaz? Let's start off looking at it from a Milan perspective. Obviously, a good win versus Roma last weekend. I obviously read some analysis of it. I have to say I didn't get to catch that one myself. We were still driving at the time. But then a bit of a disappointing result for you guys midweek. So what's the kind of mood ahead of the derby?
So the Roma performance was quite positive. For 60 minutes, Milan dominated the match and created a lot of chances. And then once Theo Hernandez got himself sent off, Milan did pretty well to defend. Roma probably are right to recriminate against a potential penalty episode in the 94th minute on Pellegrini. on that night, the luck played in favor of Milan, and in Europe, the luck was probably against Milan because Porto's goal was heavily influenced by an incorrect ref decision, in my mind. But in any case, Milan actually did show up for at least the second half against Porto, having not played for the previous 45 minutes and also having struggled quite badly in the game in Portugal. So I think to answer your question, the mood in the Milan camp is pretty good before the derby, but it could have been better if it had been cemented with vital European win that has been missing for a long time now.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about the derby in a second, but just while we're on it, and I don't want to sidetrack us too much, but we have to just mention the ridiculous interview that Mourinho gave after the 2-2 draw with Bodo Glimt, previously referred to as a Lord of the Rings team by some people on this podcast. I mean, this is just absolutely classic second or even third season Mourinho coming out after a matter of weeks at Roma, really, isn't it?
Mourinho's wrath began in the aforementioned Milan game, where, as I said, there was a few decisions that possibly went against Roma, and in general, the refereeing wasn't great. The match was very stop-start, but he was quite good at deflecting then, saying, look, if I say what I really think, I won't be sat on the bench. But clearly in this Thursday game, he no longer had that worry. Maybe he doesn't care about being banned from a game in the Conference League. But he basically called the Greek ref an amateur and said that he's now going to go back to his own league and have a good time or something like that. As you said, this is a copy-paste Mourinho from previous seasons. It's just strange that it's happened so early. And as a very slight aside, this game, the Roma-Bodo Glimt game, obviously had no VAR. And we saw the result. People are always complaining about VAR, and it's quite fashionable to do so, but I don't see anyone going back to the way it was previously because you see what happens.
Yes,
maybe we'll talk about it briefly a little bit later, but I hadn't realised there was no VAR in the Conference League until I was in the stadium and shouting, "Where's the VAR?" sitting right in front of the press box, and all the journalists just looking at me like, "There's no VAR here, mate."
You should have said it in a vaguely Nordic accent so that they would have said, "Oh, he's just a foreign tourist. He doesn't know." But instead,
just a foreign tourist coming here to watch the Europa Farmers League, UEFA Farmers League, and
yeah, what a disappointing trip if one was a tourist. No, but anyway, so Inter on their European adventure this week, they did get the job done versus Sheriff, and looks very much like they're going to qualify. What do we make of Inter's chances in this? They've should be fairly confident. Obviously, they won this fixture last time round, Boaz, 3-0 in a game which was pretty decisive in the title race.
Yeah, I was going to come on to it. I should say that Inter beating Sheriff is something that should happen. The Sheriff are really not that strong a side, but of course Sheriff did beat Real Madrid, and so for Inter to show up and get the 6 points against them was very important. And also I feel that Inzaghi was able to rotate his squad a little bit, both in this game and in the weekend game. And so we saw a lot of Vidal, for example, who maybe hasn't featured as much, and also Alexis Sanchez got on the score sheet. Having said that, I don't think we'll see these guys in the derby. I think that, unfortunately, it's hard for me to say, but I think Inter are slight favorites for this one. Firstly, they are the reigning champions, but also they have I think their individual players are better than the Milan squad, whereas the Milan squad probably has more options. I think this will be the derby of Çalhanoğlu, who obviously is persona non grata at Milanello, and I think a lot will be determined by how well he does or doesn't do. We'll see him a lot on the ball, and let's see what happens. I'm to be honest, I'm not that worried about him specifically, but I may have to eat my words after.
I was going to say, Buzz, I don't think you should be too worried based on your previous comments on this podcast. But it's definitely, it comes for a neutral. It comes at a really exciting time, right, Kenny? I mean, this is really could be very decisive, certainly for the crowning of the winter champions, if not the Scudetto.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think last week I asked Boaz whether it was time to say that Juventus's title aspirations were over. I think now, after the latest installment, they are now find themselves in a position from which no one has gone on to win Serie A. So Boaz mentioned that when they were 13 points behind, that was where they were when they won the league a few seasons ago. Now they're further behind than that, and no one has ever won the league from that position. So Juventus we can count out of it. Inter are probably the only contenders, really, to Milan and Napoli. And this game has absolutely huge implications because they could find themselves too far behind afterwards. I think the stakes are higher for Inter than they are for Milan, but also kind of interestingly, I think when Juventus got that late equalizer at Inter, that what you would expect to happen there is that it would be a turning point for Juventus and a real blow to Inter, and the exact opposite has kind of proved to be the case in the league anyway. Juventus have got no points since that, so in their last 3 games they've only picked up 1 point, which is astonishing. But Inter, on the other hand, have gone on to beat Empoli, a very decent Empoli side, away from home. They've gone on to beat Udinese, who I always say is not an easy game, and obviously they won the Champions League game as well. So I can see why Boaz has Inter as slight favourites. I think this one is too close to call, if I'm honest. Form goes out the window, really, in these situations. And I think that what Milan have shown throughout all of their injury problems is that there's a team element to this Milan that has been developing under Pioli, but I think we're seeing it this season that even when the protagonists are out, they're able to find those results in Serie A. Europe, obviously, a different story. I'm not bold enough to make a prediction either way on this, but an absolutely huge game in terms of the Scudetto race already so early on in the season. But I really think if Inter lose this, then I think it's a 2-horse race from here on in.
And you were right to bring up the match from last season, because in February, obviously, Milan were still leading the Serie A, and Inter went on to win the derby and went on an incredible run and eventually won the league, of course. But as opposed to Milan back then, who kind of struggled and lost points and also lost to Spezia, Milan come into this game with an incredible form. As Kenny said, there is a great depth and a lot of resources. And as I mentioned, at least the first 60 minutes when it was 11v11, Milan didn't show Roma any of the ball, and they were creating chance upon chance. So I think it's a good time for this derby to come around. Theo Hernandez will be severely missed. It's a shame he got that second booking, and
ridiculous second booking, yeah.
Yeah, which also, if we're talking about refereeing errors, also came after a foul from a Roma player. Again, that wasn't whistled, sorry. So again, the refereeing decisions are impacting all teams, and maybe we need VAR for more occasions rather than fewer occasions. I don't know if we're coming back to Mourinho later, but I did want to say that I forgot to mention it, but it's particularly petulant of Mourinho when he has a 20 million euro striker in Shomorodov on the bench to throw on this guy Felix, who's like a 17-year-old from the Primavera. He's thrown him on against Milan. This is his new project. So it's more. I don't know what's going on there. Honestly, it seems like it's already out of control.
Yeah, definitely it does seem that way. And just Kenny, if you're going to sit on the bench, I think I'll lean towards Milan for this one, just to balance things out. And the reason that I'll give is, although we were talking about this, the corresponding fixture from last season being the January one, actually they're switched over. So the one in which Milan were the home team, actually they won last season, and that was before Christmas as well.
Yeah, and the fans actually make a difference this time, because there are actually fans in the stadium, so there is actually an actual home advantage.
I hate to say it, but it does seem like Milan in recent seasons have started the season a lot stronger. So whether they go on to maintain this form throughout the second half of the season, yet to be seen. But I do definitely back them in this game.
No reason to hate to say it. It's fine.
Okay.
Buzz loves to hear you say it.
He loves it. Okay, so yeah, definitely looking forward to that one. It's on the Sunday evening.
I'm so nervous.
We should, Kenny, you mentioned before about Juventus, and we should touch briefly on their week, continuing their pattern of quite strong form in the Champions League, while losing points in the league that you'd really expect them to pick up. What did you make of I know you watched both games. What did you kind of make of the performances?
Well, the striking thing for me is how much better they were in Europe, and I guess you could say that you could call into question the opposition, but when you look at the wage budgets, the results in Europe should be the ones where they're actually struggling. I mean, the points that they've dropped in the last couple of weeks, I mean, losing to Sassuolo, losing to Verona, and Juve's wage budget absolutely dwarfs those. Has to be said first off the bat about the Verona game. The Verona were absolutely excellent, and I'm not gonna preempt one of Boaz's honourables, but there's a real rejuvenation going on there. I think we all worried for Verona really when Juric left, but obviously there's been the managerial change that's happened partway through the season, which often doesn't work, which definitely has done for them. The one positive for Juve is Dybala, for me. Dybala is really coming back to his own. Even in that game against Verona in the first half when Juve were absolutely awful, just turgid stuff, Dybala, you can see, is absolutely on it. He's back, and that is something that they can build on. And the other thing as well is Chiesa coming back. So they were very, very good in midweek in the Champions League. I mean, the final result says 4-2, but I mean, they were 4-1 up until the dying moments of that game, and the only reason that they conceded a goal is because Bonucci got his head in the way of a cross, a speculative cross that ended up sort of looping over Szczesny. So, I mean, they were great in midweek. Dybala is looking great. Federico Chiesa's come back. And I think that Allegri might have started to stumble upon some sort of a system, at least up front. At the back, things are still a bit chaotic. But he might have stumbled across a sort of system up front which works. I mean, on paper, it's a 4-4-2, but what we're actually seeing really is that in advanced positions, it's almost like there's a 3, right? There's Morata in the middle, and Dybala, who supposedly is the second striker, is playing more as sort of an inside forward, a trequartista, but over to the right, and Chiesa cutting in. And I think you have to say that's kind of a fearsome 3, to be honest. I think another positive to take for them now, and it's kind of a silver lining, is that the pressure is absolutely off. I mean, Allegri, yes, he has to qualify for the Champions League, but that is not out of reach by any means now. I think they can forget about the Scudetto, and I think the kind of shackles can come off, to be honest. And I think if they play with that system, with Chiesa cutting in, he was an absolute menace in midweek. And Dybala back to his best. You have to say that perhaps not for Milan and Napoli, but for Inter, Atalanta, Roma, Lazio, do not write Juve off, because I don't think that I think we are actually at a turning point here. I think what we saw in midweek, and even we saw glimpses of it in the second half of that game against Verona, is things beginning to turn around for them.
Yeah, and with that said, so does Vinny Italian have something to worry about? Do we predict them as favourites for the weekend to get in their clash with Fiorentina?
Well, having said all of that, Fiorentina is the absolute nightmare solution for them team for them to be coming up against, because everyone expects Juve are the favourites, but Fiorentina were early on in the season anyway, the sort of form side, or the surprise package. The Fiorentina do have a problem though, in that their only striking option is Vlahovic. Gonzalez is out with COVID. I think people are expecting Juve to drop points here. I think Juve are going to win this one.
You have to say, and it's ironic in a way, that this is the sort of game that you would kind of rely on Ronaldo to to nick a couple of goals and win for them. It seems like Juventus have really been missing him, which is ironic because obviously what they brought him in to do was do better in the Champions League, which they seem to be doing without him.
This is probably the point where Juventus bid farewell to the league title, or the least to their dreams of a 10th Scudetto last season when Fiorentina beat them 3-0 at the stadium. Now, I think that although we've all been going on about Vinny Italian and how pretty on the eye Fiorentina are, on the actual results have not been phenomenal, and they seem to concede a lot of chances to the opposition. So what better time to meet them for Juventus when they desperately need goals? And just going back to that Champions League game, yes, it was a good performance, and yes, they did get 4 goals, which is quite atypical for an Allegri side. But lads, it's Zenit St. Petersburg, and also they conceded 2 goals against Zenit, which, I mean, every goal has its own story, but I'd be a little bit worried by that if I were a Juventus fan.
I would hazard a guess that Zenit St. Petersburg have a larger wage budget than Verona or Sassuolo, though, is all I'm saying.
Atalanta as well.
I mean, possibly. I don't know. I mean, I'm just firing.
That's one for us
off the
to check
hip here, but it would be interesting to see. Yeah.
Sorry, Kenny. That was just one of my legendary segues into our next talking point.
Oh right, okay.
Because I just thought it was important that we talked about Atalanta versus United. I've been reading a little bit about this game, and the impression I got, Kenny, is that Ronaldo has kind of saved Manchester United in this game. Is that what happened?
It is, yes. And we're in quite aside from our Scudetto WhatsApp group, where we secretly exchange messages about what we're going to speak about in episodes. We're also part of another football group on WhatsApp as well, and I was rubbishing suggestions by commentators after the first United goal that Ronaldo had saved United. But with the second goal, absolutely, it's one of those points where, injury time at the death, and Ronaldo kind of like, it's almost a situation where he's gone, well, if you guys aren't going to sort this out, then I'll take care of it myself. Does have to be said that I think there was a very strong shout for a handball in the lead up to this goal in a match where there was VAR. But you know what? I mean, for Atalanta, it's a good result. It might be a small club thing to say, to get a point off of United. It was a good result. Gasperini said as much. I think Ronaldo reiterated what you said, which is the United were very, very lucky. And I mean, it was a smash and grab job really for United. Atalanta should have put the game to bed. Duvan Zapata was absolutely incredible. Ilicic is back to his best, which is wonderful to see. Coop Miners looks great. So, I mean, gutting, obviously. Not as gutting, perhaps, as the United one, where you're 2-0 up away from home. This one, there was never more than 1 goal in it. Ronaldo saved them, but it came courtesy of what undoubtedly was a handball, which I'm guessing the only reason VAR didn't award it is because there's questions as to whether it was intentionality. So I think the rules now stipulate that if there's an accidental handball in the lead up to a goal, that you can't pull it back. But this looked to me very clearly like a reflex action rather than the ball accidentally hitting his hand. So to me, it looked like clear handball, and the goal shouldn't have stood.
I haven't pulled the rule book out since last time I pulled the rule book out on this podcast to check something. But I think if it directly leads to an assist, it doesn't matter if it's intentional.
Perhaps that may be so. If that is the case, then it kind of seems like
it's just
the
a
rules,
mistake,
which are always revisited, need revisiting again.
Yeah,
I mean, it was a handball. It wasn't. Yeah,
it was a handball.
It wasn't an intention. It wasn't a case of the ball hitting an attacking player's arm and the attacking team gaining an advantage out of it, which is what I understood the rule change was to negate. But gutting anyway. I mean, it's something that was quite blatant and should have been picked up by the referee. It shouldn't have needed to go to VAR. But undoubtedly a heroic performance by Atalanta, and they're still in it. They very much still are. We've seen the results they pulled out in past seasons, and they can do it under Gasp.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Obviously, a couple of disappointing results against Man United, but you still got a point out of the potential 6, and then just big games against Young Boys and Villarreal coming up. I'd still be fairly optimistic about Atalanta's chances of qualifying, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the big things that I haven't said yet about the United game was the returns of something resembling Atalanta's first choice defensive line. They've been playing with Martin de Roon, who, I mean, all credit to him, has been filling in wherever he's been needed. But they've got Jim City back, Palomino's there, Demiral is there, so that is a positive. They had a full-on injury crisis where they only had one first-choice centre-back in a team that plays with 3 centre-backs. And that has been the case for the last sort of few games. And now they seem to be over that. So hopefully there are no other injury scares. But I would say the same about Atalanta as I said about Juve, that I think they are beginning to get into their groove, really. And hopefully they don't throw that away against Cagliari this weekend, because that's a match that they really should win comfortably.
Yeah, and looks like the league form could be picking up as well. How are you feeling? I know we discussed it kind of briefly when we were talking about Milan, but and Juventus. But how are you feeling about the prospects of top 4, and especially in the context of that kind of last gasp equaliser from Martin de Roon against Lazio last weekend?
Yeah, I mean, that was, I think the thing that gets missed when you see that there was a, last minute equalizer is that Atalanta were absolutely piling the pressure on, and they had some really, really clear cut chances to equalize. They were still in the midst of that injury crisis that I spoke about during the Lazio game. So I personally, just looking at the fact that Sarri is in his first season at Lazio, and that they haven't quite hit any consistency. Mourinho, the wheels seem to be coming off at Roma. For me, the last 2 Champions League spots, Inter are obviously very much favourites, given that they're so far ahead. But Atalanta, Inter, Juve is going to be very interesting to see who the 3rd and 4th spots go to, and I think Atalanta have every chance of doing that. It's going to be tough for Juve to, now that Atalanta are in their groove, to kind of to better them, let's say.
Yeah, it's definitely, as you said before, there's a real kind of exciting race for that 4th spot, essentially, or 3rd and 4th, I guess.
And the 3rd, I think, if Inter lose against Milan, then they get dragged into the equation as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think it's probably time that we talk about Tottenham Hotspur on this podcast. I know Boaz has been very much against it.
It's been a while.
And we've good reason, given that it's not really within our purview. But this week it is, because the world has been shocked by the news of Antonio Conte being appointed as the manager. What was your kind of initial reaction to it, first of all, and then maybe I can give you a kind of little bit of insight into the first game?
My initial reaction is that it's an absolutely incredible appointment by Tottenham. We give Antonio Conte a lot of stake, or we have given him a lot of stake, partly because he's a character who opens himself up to kind of a little bit of ridicule in, I guess in a respectful way. Can you say that? Can you ridicule someone respectfully? I don't know. But I don't think there's any questions about his credentials as a top coach. And I know that Boaz has repeatedly said, Conte is a winner. Conte is a winner. And he said this before Conte won the league with Inter, and Conte went on and won the league with Inter. I think it's an incredible appointment for Tottenham. I am very perplexed as to why Conte, who demands results immediately and who demands the backing of the board immediately, would go to a club with a chairman who is notorious for being, loving a bit of brinkmanship and losing out on incredible signings. We've spoken about Dybala already, and that sounds like that was a bit of a Levy special, missing out on that deal not that long ago, a couple of seasons ago. But yeah, I'm not sure how Conte will respond to having identified key transfer targets that Levy then tries to bargain for and misses out on inevitably. It's a recipe for disaster for me. I think undoubtedly there will be an improvement. I think for Harry Kane, he'll get him back to his best, because we know what he does with strikers. We know what he did with Lukaku. I said to you, Oscar, that I think that Son Heung-min will be one of the best left backs in the Premier League after Conte's finished with him.
Yeah, I have to dispute that, but
I jest.
Yeah, Boaz, you've said before that you think he's a winner. Are you happy that Tony Count is relevant again? I mean, maybe not directly relevant to this podcast, but relevant to football in general.
Well, considering I helm Keeping Up with the Italians, which is our corner about Italians abroad, I'm very happy to see him back, and I'm looking forward to covering a lot of his antics, whether they are positive or negative. I have to say I was also quite surprised by this appointment, mostly because he rejected the role in the summer, allegedly, and also because he said in the past that he would not take any challenge if there wasn't at least a 1% opportunity to win something. And I'm not sure what his aspirations, what he's going to win with Tottenham. He's not going to go for the league or the Champions League this year, that's for sure. So will an FA Cup, will a Europa League, a Conference League, will something like this be enough to keep him quote unquote satisfied? I think the fact that he's making 15 million a year is will probably keep him sleeping quite well at night. And I think it's very exciting times for Tottenham, because it's a elite manager. He's someone who just the other week was spoken of as a possible replacement for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And as we said, he left Italy as a champion. So for me, it's a really great move for Tottenham. And now, as you both alluded to, now it's about getting him the players he wants and making sure he has any resources he needs. You mentioned Daniel Levy being a bit of a hard hard president to deal with, and it's funny because in one of his first interviews, Antonio Conte said that Daniel Levy was a visionary. So I'm not sure what he's seen there or what he was told, but we'll see how that plays out. But I'm very excited about this, I have to admit.
I think maybe Conte, when he was talking about Levy being a visionary, maybe he was talking about the stadium and the training facilities. Because when he was asked about the squad after the game, he said, what do you think of the players now you've seen them in action? I think the journalist asked him something along those lines. He said, well, the stadium's fantastic and the training facilities are the best in the world. So I think definitely the players, some of them are in for a bit of a rude awakening.
Yeah.
When Conte left Juventus, he famously said that Juventus couldn't win the Champions League because you can't dine in a €100 restaurant on €10. And I mean, I wouldn't say that being at Spurs is a €10 meal, but it's definitely not a €100 meal yet. It's somewhere in the middle there. So again, I'm interested to see where Conte takes them, and also how he judges success in this particular outing. For me, it's a lot like when Klopp was announced at Liverpool, because it's a completely new style of play, and it's someone who comes in with not just a tactic, but also an entire mentality, an entire ethos. And I think Spurs players will do well with that.
Yeah, and I think we've spoken a little bit about them already, but worth noting that Dybala's contract is up for renewal at the end of this year. We all know that Vlahovic is on the transfer list, and we all know that Conte and Paratici know Serie A very, very well. There's been talk about Kessie as well, so it could be that while we rejoice in it now, we're essentially mourning the loss of some real superstars in Serie A. Dybala has not been rumoured at all, by the way. I'm just throwing that out there at the moment as a little bit of a wild card, because he nearly went to Spurs a while back. But yeah, I think there will be some heavy losses to Serie A probably after this move.
Anyway, it's certainly on the first evidence. Obviously, I was attending the game last night, straight off my European tour, and certainly seems like Conte's managed to stamp something of the style that we saw at Juve and more recently at Inter and at Chelsea. Just in the 2 training sessions which he'd managed to conduct. I mean, I think officially it was only 1 because the first one he didn't have a working visa, so he was observing Ryan Mason. But it certainly seems like he's, we saw the high full backs and the kind of pressing midfield.
And did he look nice and relaxed on the sidelines? The relaxed Antonio Conte that we know.
Yeah, he was. I'd say he was somewhere probably between angry Conte and there was maybe a couple of flashes of happy Conte, as we've characterised it in the past, but it was definitely mostly angry Conte. I was actually sat right behind the technical area of Conte. I sent you guys some pictures of him coming out in a suit, and he was, like Inter fans won't need telling this, but he was incredibly intense. He didn't sit down. He was gesturing constantly. He was directing the play sort of very specifically. It was almost like he was trying to like gesture control Sergio Reguilon, who's Spurs' left wing back, and he was like Reguilon was standing like not quite high enough up the pitch, and Conte's screaming at him to get up, and then the possession turns over and Conte's screaming at him to get back again. So it's definitely a change from what the Spurs players are used to. And
a rude awakening.
Yeah, a rude awakening, as I said. But I think some players will really respond to that. And I noticed Harry Kane, as soon as he managed, because the way the game went, Sergio Romero, who obviously Serie A fans will know well, got a rash second yellow, and Spurs were down a man for a little while, but Harry Kane very cleverly managed to get one of the Vitesse centre-backs sent off, and he ran straight over to Conte for instruction. So it looks like he's demanding kind of respect, which maybe Nuno couldn't already in that department, which is very, very interesting to see. And obviously, as a Tottenham fan, very heartwarming. But yeah, I guess we'll have to see how that goes. It's exciting for Premier League fans to see Conte back.
Yeah, I mean, I said it earlier, one of the best managers in the world. So
yeah, I imagine he'll be facing Jose Mourinho's Roma in the final of the Europa Conference League, and I'd give them at least 1% chance of winning that, Baz.
Jose Mourinho's side are not making the final of this competition.
Yes, I mean that's a fair comment.
On current evidence. We should do a quick roundup of what else is going on in the best of the rest. Empoli Genoa, I think, is still ongoing. And do we have a result in that one yet? I finished 2-2. Obviously, Empoli were leading in that game actually, so slightly disappointing from them. Elsewhere, there was a few other games that we haven't mentioned. Spezia Torino is tomorrow, and then there are 6 games on Sunday actually. Venezia Roma, Samp Bologna, Udinese Sassuolo, Napoli Verona, Lazio Salernitana, and then obviously the Milan derby later on. Mohamedi Hattaran is apparently considering retirement aged 19.
If you may remember that this guy signed from PSV to Juventus in the summer and was immediately sent out on loan to Sampdoria. He allegedly showed up about 5 kilos overweight and was sent back to Rotterdam to rehabilitate, and he's not been heard or seen since. And the rumors coming out of Holland are that he's considering retiring because he's suffering from depression. So not the best story, and hopefully he comes out of it, because he's supposed to be a great talent and he's very good in Football Manager.
This is the gong that we need for Baz's mentions of his Football Manager account. But other news in best of the rest, Inter have renewed Nicolas Stretcher's contract. Who's that?
Nicola Varela.
Varela, okay. You've just put these English translations in to troll me.
This is a bit of a Ron Burgundy moment.
Yeah, it is a bit of a Ron Burgundy. I knew there would be like an English translation, but with my lack of language skills, I had no idea what it was.
This comes off the heel of them signing Lautaro on a long-term contract, and also Alex Stix signing a contract back in May. Alex Stick being Alessandro Bastoni just for Oscar's benefit.
And we should also say Italy have announced an extended squad for the crucial World Cup qualifiers that are coming up. So how many people is that they've announced?
Mancini announced a 28 squad for these 2 games. Presumably, like, some players will be dropped in the build-up. There's some interesting selections.
Good stuff. And on that note, let's go to keeping up with the Italians, as we've already stolen your main talking point about Antonio Conte. But maybe you can tell us about your favourite goalkeeper.
So first of all, you may have heard that Antonio Conte has signed on for Spurs. Next up, Gigio Donnarumma saved his 16th career penalty against Leipzig and also conceded 2 goals in that match. But at 22 years of age, that's incredible going. And Cristiano Piccinini, who last year you may remember was on loan at Atalanta but hardly got a game, has finally played his first minutes of the season for Valencia. He's had a horrible injury spell, so it's good to see him back on the pitch. This guy called Stefano Napoleoni, who's scored a 95th minute winner in Turkey for Umriyanispor. This guy may not be familiar to Serie A fans because he's played most of his career abroad, and I found out that he was the first Italian player ever to play in Poland in 2008. So good on him. And lastly, leaving the biggest league for last, the Maltese BOV Premier League handed out the Coach of the Month award for the first time ever, and Stefano Sandera of Hibernians was the first manager to ever take it. So kudos to him.
Thanks for that, Boaz. Let's head straight into the honourables and dishonourables section, and let's kick off with the classic goals honourable, Kenny.
Okay, sure, yeah. So I was very tempted to give my goals honourable to Duvan Zapata, for his goal against Manchester United. Just the balance, the composure, the footwork to kind of finish that off was sensational. But I feel like I have to give it to Simeone for his second goal against Juve, really. I mean, the guy can't stop scoring, but simply the importance of the goal for starters, for Verona to get that win against Juve, what proved to be the winning goal. But also, I mean, the goal itself was an absolutely glorious finish. He cuts inside, probably isn't closed down because absolutely nobody thinks that he's a threat from where he is, and just lifts the ball from what must be all of about 25 yards, possibly further, over Szczesny into the top corner. Just a wonderful technique, wonderful long range effort. So Simeone is getting my goals honourable this week.
Yeah, it's a lovely goal. Definitely check it out on YouTube.
And can I just add on Simeone that I feel sorry for the guy, so he deserves an honourable, because every game he plays, he's always asked about his dad. Oh, you scored against Juventus. That your dad played for Inter. You must hate them. Oh, you scored against Lazio. That's your dad's old team. How do you feel about that? I'm sure he wants to be his own person. He's bored with this.
Well, now he's got his own honourable. So
yeah, exactly.
And Boaz has just mentioned his dad in it, so it's taken that away from him as well.
I did it too. I'm as guilty as everyone.
Boaz, you wanted to give an honourable to a former Inter drunkard. This
one is a slight tenuous link to Serie A, but I'm going all in with it. You may have seen that Donny van der Beek announced that his wife was pregnant, and his wife is Dennis Bergkamp's daughter, so that's already like a kind of a Serie A link there. But anyway, I'm giving an honourable to Andy van der Meijden, who commented on this announcement that they were pregnant, asking if they're going to call their kid Ole Gunnar.
That is good. Boaz, I'm going to steal your social media honourable this week, and I'm going to give it to Victor Osimhen. Although I have to admit I don't understand most of what he posts. I just enjoy the energy, because there was some guy had tweeted a response to one of the memes that he posted saying that, oh, Victor, you need to hire like a PR guy, like look at other professionals that are around your age and look at Mbappe and look at how they use social media much more responsibly than you. And Osimhen had just quote tweeted this and replied to it with some Zuma meme, which I didn't really understand, but I just thought it was very funny. And if you just look through his Twitter feed, he's just basically just trolling people. So it's a definite honourable from me. Just to switch tack entirely, Kenny, it's not your goals honourable, but it's an honourable for a lot of goals.
No, absolutely, it's not a goals honourable. It's a record honourable. It's for Dybala becoming Juve's most prolific non-Italian with 106 goals, and I take any excuse to give Dybala an honourable mention. So honourable mention, Paulo Dybala. My mission is to get you to be the most honoured on Scudetto by the end of the season.
And he overtook Michel Platini in this record, and then celebrated by doing the Michel Platini celebration. So I especially like that.
Yeah. While we're on Argentinians, I wanted to give an honourable to Matthias Saula, who is a Serie A player who's been called up by Argentina.
He's on loan from Juventus, and possibly he was playing against Südtirol last weekend, and now he's going to be training with Messi and co. So I'm guessing the Argentinian coach might have gotten a bit confused and called up the wrong player or something.
It's certainly possible, but it's an honourable for now at least. And Kenny, Arturo Vidal has earned an honourable from you this week for his choice of transportation.
It's kind of a social media honourable, but I think he shared on social media his array of supercars with a Fiat Panda in the middle, and obviously responded to people's reaction to this by turning up at training in his Panda, but he did it in style. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen a top flight player arrive at like training or a match in their own car, if you manage to find your way into a player's car park. But quite often they turn up in these supercars and they get out of the driver's seat, and then they've got some guy sitting next to them, an assistant or whatever, who parks the car. I'm not sure if it's because they're unable to park the car or if it's because they're too important to park the car. But anyway, Vidal turned up in this Panda with music blaring out of it, and proceeds to get out of the car as if he's like well, I mean, he is a celebrity, I guess, but proceeds to get out of a Fiat Panda like he's a big shot. And his assistant comes round and like gets into the driver's seat and parks it. So just great. I mean, I don't need to tell you why it's an honourable. It's just tremendous. Slam dunk honourable.
It is fantastic, and the way he drives it in, it does look like he just doesn't know how to park it, because he just stops it across about 3 spaces, I think, before the guy repositions it for him.
Yeah, it's great.
So we've got another honourable for Nicholas Stretcher, Baz.
Yeah, we spoke about Inter's convincing win against Sheriff earlier, but what we didn't mention was that in the occasion of Brozovic's first goal, Barella somehow found himself in the way, and the most natural reaction that he found was appropriate was he dived out of the way as if he was being shot. It's fantastic. I really recommend looking for it, because it's really like a bullet time header, and he jumped into like a puddle as well, so extra points for me.
It is excellent. It's like a scene from The Matrix or something like that.
Completely unnecessary.
We've got a couple more records to give honourables for. I will give one to begrudgingly to Immobile of Lazio, becoming their all-time record scorer in just 5 years. And Kenny, you've got one for Belotti.
Yeah, Belotti reaching 100 Serie A goals. We give him a bit of stick for how he performs or does not perform for the Azzurri. But undoubtedly in Serie A, Belotti is a weapon, and reached 100 Serie A goals, so honourable for that.
Yeah, and Baz, we've talked already about Bodo Glimt and how incredible they are as a club, but you wanted to give their fans a special mention for the trip that they undertook to watch that draw in Rome.
Yeah, after considering they had a 8-2 aggregate victory against Roma, 8-3 was it? But in any case, the fans traveled 2,800 kilometers to Rome. Some of them without their shirts on, because I guess the Rome weather in November, October isn't as bad as the North Pole weather they're used to. But to put that into context, that's about 4% of the entire population of this Bodo Glimt place. So that's quite impressive.
Did they travel the whole journey with no tops on?
I don't know about that, but I know they had a special poster that said 6-1 on it, just in case the Roma fans didn't remember.
And Kenny, you seem to have snuck another goals honourable in here. It's for a goal machine, but...
Yeah, well, I mean, for the impact that Tudor's had at Verona, they have scored 21 goals since he joined, and that places them second in Europe, only behind the free-scoring Bayern Munich. So I think credit where it's due. We like to talk about Juric at Torino, because obviously that was the move that everyone was getting excited about this summer in terms of the away from the top of the league. But I think the job that he's done at Verona has been sensational, and the fact that they're scoring so many goals as well can only be good for Serie A.
Yeah, well deserved indeed. And Baz, you're going to finish us off with this one. We said when Ronaldo left that we wouldn't give him any more honourables, so this one has to be for Gasperini.
Yeah, Gasperini already set the scene when before the game he said that he was really sad that Ronaldo had left Serie A, and that maybe Atalanta would have conceded 2 or 3 more goals in the season, but overall the league would have been better off. But essentially, when interviewed post-game, he asked Ronaldo if he still knew how to say vaffanculo in Italian, and proceeded to tell him that. So all in good spirit, but still great stuff from Gasp.
Yeah, that is fantastic, and a great place to end this episode. It's been great to be back, guys, and sorry to our listeners for my extended period of absence. Hopefully I can earn my place in the starting lineup again next week, and we will be back, at least some of us, next week to discuss all of the action. If you don't already, please do subscribe to our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your audio. You can tell that I'm rusty. I've just forgotten what I say at the end of the podcast. But yeah, we'll speak to you then. Until then, enjoy the football.
Che sta decretando lo scudetto del Milan in questo preciso istante. La Juventus è campione d'Italia. Questa data, il 6 maggio.
Del anticipo, la Roma è campione d'Italia per la stagione 2000-2001.